911. What are you? That's me! That's me! That's me!
Whoa, 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 everybody. You know what time it is. You know what time it is. You know what time it is. It's real vile time, baby. It's your host, the G to the E to the R to the M. The T stands for the, but you already knew that. I'm about to rip it up in a modern way. So it's got to be Mr. Germ T. Ripper. And of course, as always, I've got my lovely co host. It is the Prime Minister, the Sinister, Ruthless Chris. Say what's up to the people in real vile land, Ruthless.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, 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 indeed. And of course, we can't go anywhere without the Tower of Power, the Princess of Power, the Killer, Kelly Miller.
Hey, Tower of the Hour. Tower of Power? Is that what you said?
Tower of Power.
The Tower of Power.
Power of the Hour?
Tower of the Hour? Power of the Hour.
The fourth power? Lou Diamond Phillips?
Between the killer,
I'm Rob Lowe.
Between the Killer and the Ruthless, we got about 4 hays, and that's a lot of hays for you. You want to know why there's so many hays tonight? Is because we're celebrating the 37th anniversary of the amazing 1986 cult classic, and you may sit back and you may be like, whoa, 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 that's not a horror movie. It's horror adjacent. It's got horror themes. There is horror in it. It is one of my favorite films, Howard the Duck. I'm clapping. Yeah. I don't care if anybody else is or not. Yay! Oh my goodness gracious gravy. We're going to be talking about everything Howard the Duck, from the writers, the producers, the director. This was a big deal when it came out, and a big failure, but it just has spun out of control with its cult following. But in the meantime, let's see what everybody's been up to. Hey, Killer Kelly, what have you been up to in the past week or so?
Oh, I'm actually quite surprised with how fast this week has went. Yeah, not a whole lot. Just trying to get my shit organized. We've got a midnight movie marathon going on, coming up at the King of the Kill counterfeit after Unsanctioned Pro on August 11th. I know that was so sloppy. I just like talk, Kelly. I can't get words out. Mushmouth sort of night. Sorry.
That is pretty wild. Severin is showing the Masked Mutilator. That's going to be a wild night indeed.
Yes.
Are you going to be hosting it? Or are you going to just be enjoying the film with the rest of the crew?
Yeah, I'll be hosting it. We've got some. Severin gave us some prizes, so we're going to do something to, get some Severin films out to whoever's there and wants to partake. Probably some horror trivia. We'll see what we got going on. It'll be a good time.
Sweet. Very exciting news. Mr. Ruthless Chris, what have you got going on?
Aside from what she was talking about with the movie marathon, I did get the box in from Severin. They gave us a huge stack of DVDs, stickers, one sheets, all kinds of stuff. So definitely come check out that raffle. You're gonna walk away with something. Aside from that, we went and saw a metal show the other day. Went and saw See You Next Tuesday.
Yeah,
a band I really loved. A band I really loved when I was growing up, and it was cool to see them back after so many years. That was fun. And we got Krampus to look forward to at the drive-in this Wednesday for Christmas in July.
That is tomorrow.
That is tomorrow. We record on Tuesday, so... also, if I sound like shit, my computer's having problems, so I'm doing this on my phone today. So bear with us, guys. I may sound like crap today, but yeah. And then we're going to see Zayo next week, so we got a bunch of stuff going on. As usual, King of the Kill, we're gearing up for that. Mm-hmm. We're only a couple weeks out now, so a bunch of fun stuff going on. How about you, Jerem? What have you been up to?
Nothing much, just enjoying some wrestling. I went to the Black Label Pro show. That was fun. Saw a lot of great workers I'd never seen work live. First time first time seeing Puff and Crash Jackson, and I've had a crush on both of them for a long time. So, yeah, it was a fun weekend. Besides getting to see some hotties in their singlets and their tights, Ken and I had a yard sale where we made a good amount of money. If wrestling isn't porn, just stop shaking your head at me. What should it be?
I have to work with these people, dude.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I don't. I just get to enjoy looking at their butts. um, let's get this terror train on the tracks and talk about what movies we've been watching lately. Ruthless Chris, what have you been watching?
So I'm going to go off the cuff on this one. Like I said, I'm using my phone, so I can't really look at my notes. This one I watched on Tubi. It was called Strawberry Flavored Plastic. It's a found footage mockumentary style. I think they really went the way of like Man Bites Dog, or like How to Be a Serial Killer, or like Video X or something like that, where it's, you know, a serial killer documenting what he does and why he does it, or like the last horror movie. Except this one has no balls or bite at all to it. There's maybe 1 or 2 scenes of gore. Most of it's all psychological. The acting of it was pretty good, but it really didn't go anywhere, and it wasn't as clever as it thought it was. I spent most of my time really, really bored. I did not enjoy it at all. So 1 star, wouldn't recommend it. Strawberry Flavored Plastic on Tubi. Wasn't for me. Yeah, it sucks.
That stinks, you know, because everything you said sounded like it was pretty interesting until you said 1 star. So I will salute you and say thank you for watching that one so that we don't have to.
The thing about it was, you know, a lot of those horror movies, when they do the found footage, they need to have when the horror comes it be shocking for it to work. And like, I think you see 1 murder the entire movie, and the rest is just like talked about or like hinted at. You see him beat up an old lady at a grocery store and yell at some people. But like, if you've seen like Man Bites Dog, or, you know, like August Underground, or, you know, last horror movie and shit like that, Poughkeepsie Tapes, this is like watching a G movie, you know?
Fair enough. All those movies you listed, I love, but if you're saying this is nothing like those,
watch those instead.
Yes, watch those instead. Indeed. 1 star, Strawberry Flavored Plastic on Tubi. Kelly, have you seen this one as well or no?
I have not.
I have not either, and I will not, because 1 star means it's a pile of non-enjoyable dog shit.
I liked the name. That's why I was like, oh, okay, I like that. You know,
right? Yeah, I kind of popped for the name as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had a good name. They had a good cover, and you know the description sounded like it'd be interesting, but nope.
Fair enough. Killer Kelly, what you got for us, baby?
Ticks. I've been watching Ticks. 1993's Ticks. You can watch this on Tubi, Pluto, Roku, Freevee, all the good channels that are free. I guess Vinegar Syndrome also has a release of this where they released some extra scenes that weren't in the version that I probably watched. But this was directed by Tony Randall. He did Hellbound, the Hellraiser 2, and I haven't seen this one, but Piranhaconda. I'm kind of interested.
I think that's one of those sci-fi originals, like Sharktopus and all that, and Mega Croc.
Makes sense. But this one is starring Seth Green, Clint Howard, and Carlton, Alfonso Ribeiro from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. All right, this movie, it's basically, there's a bunch of troubled teens, you know, played by Carlton and Seth Green and a few other troubled teens. And they take them out of LA into the wilderness to go to some sort of troubled kid retreat. Carlton is he's the badass of the group. You know, which is kind of funny. His name
Doesn't he have like a really goofy nickname or something?
Yeah, his name is Panic because he don't.
That's it.
So they can take these troubled teens out to the wilderness, and they just happen to be out in the wilderness where somebody's growing a bunch of marijuana plants. Well, whoever's growing the marijuana plants, Clint Howard,
Of
is
course.
spraying some shit on them that in order to make them grow bigger, it also is making the ticks grow bigger. So, it is what it sounds like. It's exactly what it is for the year, and it's fucking fantastic. Like, the ticks grow large, they start, getting inside people, and like, grow larger, and it gets more and more ridiculous throughout the movie. Great practical effects. It's exactly what you would expect for this time, for 1993, like, Tick movie starring Seth Green and Carlton to be. It's fantastic. I give it a 4. I highly recommend it, actually. I had a lot of fun with this, a lot of good one-liners. Yeah, Ticks.
Very cool. Very, very cool. And you said it's streaming on Tubi?
Yep, Tubi, Pluto, Roku, Freevee.
So all of the above. No excuse not to watch Ticks. Surprisingly enough, I have not watched Ticks, and I need to change that because this sounds like an extremely fun movie, and I do enjoy fun movies. Ruthless Chris, have you seen Ticks?
I have. The reason I gave the extra laugh on that was when Kelly and I were trying to watch Malum the other day on her theater system that we had set up out back. Out of nowhere, she just started like thinking about camping, and she just yells "Ticks" out of nowhere. So the running joke has been just yelling Ticks at her, and then she watches Ticks. So I just thought that was funny. Yes, I love this movie. It's been a number of years since I've seen it, but I got the DVD. It's what I watched a lot when I was younger. It really tickles that urge of that practical effect monster movie with like that didn't take itself seriously, and it was in that like everyone talks about the 80s horror, but there was like a sweet pocket in the early 90s too.
Mm-hmm.
Where the tone was shifting a little bit, but like they were still making really fun and interesting stuff. And I think that one, like this one really tickles that itch. And, like it's amazing how many of these like high school horror movies Seth Green pops up in like over like a 12-year span of time. Like he was in that arcade movie I watched about like the killer computers and shit, like he's in every goddamn thing. So yeah, I give it 3.5, 4. I love it.
Yeah, this was apparently one of his first. Like it was up there with one of his like first movies. So
when he first started out, he was getting kind of bounced around Full Moon Productions, and that's why he ended up in this and that. Like they're all full Moon movies, so they just kind of put him in any teenage movie they needed, and there he went.
Yeah, Carlton stole the show kind of in this panic because I don't.
And I'm guessing that neither of them or any of the people playing teenagers were actually teenagers or close to even being a teenager.
They were kind of close. There was a few, but yeah, they were pretty close. Seth Green had to be pretty young.
Probably because I think this was like right either pre-Fresh Prince or like right when Fresh Prince was starting out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It might be pre-Fresh Prince for how young he looks in this.
All right. Fair enough. Cool. Well, I'll definitely have to check out Ticks. In the meantime, I'm going to be talking about 1989's Jaws ripoff. It is a wild horror comedy that Vinegar Syndrome just came out with a collector's edition of a little while ago. So I made my way over to check it out. It is called Blades. This is a wild movie because it's about a killer lawnmower that hunts people on a golf course. I didn't realize that the tone of it a lot of times is either like it's full-on comedy or like it's playing it really straight. And I just feel like it's got to be either totally campy or totally straight. It can't just keep switching gears. And I didn't realize that it was about a killer lawnmower when I started it. I was just like, oh, well, Vinegar Syndrome put it out. It was originally put out by Troma. This is going to be a wild ride. And for the most part, I enjoyed it until it just kept going and going and going. And, when a movie is an hour and 41 minutes and it feels much longer, it doesn't really bode too well for the film. Some of the humor was kind of misplaced because of the tone. Like it should have been overly campy, and it would have totally sold. But for a Jaws ripoff, I did enjoy it, but not as much as I thought I would. So I watched on Amazon Prime, and I would give it 2.5 stars. Have either of you guys seen Blades, and what do you think about it?
Have not.
I have. When I was younger, anything that was on Troma and I found out VHS, I would just fucking buy it. So I had this as a young kid on VHS. And yeah, it's exactly what you said. It's just Jaws ripoff with a lawnmower, but it's got a lot of fun stuff going on for it. But yeah, it does slog on a little bit. Like it just goes a little long in the tooth on its concept. But for the most part, I really enjoyed it, and I definitely watched it. I know it's on Tubi as well because I almost revisited it the other day.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Trauma. That is not one I have seen. But yeah, some of them do kind of slog on longer than they should. You're like, Jesus. Yeah.
Well, it's not an actual Trauma movie. It's like one of the ones they buy, like Night Beast or like
Gotcha.
Wendigo or Decapitated or something like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, one of the telltale signs that I should have been able to guess that it was a Trauma film. Well, one of the selling points was that it was a Trauma film. Was that it takes place in New Jersey, and a lot of their early films took place in New Jersey. So maybe like the filmmakers, maybe they were hoping that if it took place in New Jersey, Troma would distribute it, and luckily that was the case. I'm just throwing darts here, though. That could be way off. Who knows?
Yeah, I know that they would just pick shit up for nothing back in the day and just put it all out,
Yeah, totally understandable. You just want to get some product out there, and we see that a lot nowadays. Still, we gotta get some content out there for people to look at. But let's keep this terror train rocking and rolling, Mr. Ruthless Chris. What have you been watching, baby?
My next one is also a found footage movie, but this one was pretty different, and I really fucking enjoyed it. This is Incident at Loch Ness by Werner Herzog. Did not know he made a found footage movie, let alone one about the Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster is fucking in this thing, and they play it very straight faced, even though it is intentionally funny. Werner Herzog plays himself. He takes a group of marine biologists along with a busty woman to host the thing out onto the Loch Ness to do a documentary on the Loch Ness Monster. Why they're out there, they actually find it, and it attacks their boat, and it's their fight to survive since then. I had no idea this thing existed. You'd think that Werner Herzog movie, people would know more about it, especially since it stars him. And I guess this was on the heels of The Grizzly Man. He wanted to do something in that style, but not so fucking bleak, and like that just leaves you like heartbroken at the end, like Grizzly Man did. This one's actually a lot of fun. It's played very straight faced, but it's intentionally funny, kind of like Butt Boy. It's not that funny, but it has that same, like present it like this is as real as possible, even though how ridiculous whatever's going to be around you gets. It's a lot of fun. It's a short watch. It's only like I think 78 minutes. I watched it on Tubi. There's some decent creature stuff, and actually, when I'm bored at night, I'll like look up like paranormal stuff and like cryptid stuff. I saw scenes from this movie that people were trying to pass off as real Loch Ness attacks on YouTube before, and I was like, oh, it's that fucking movie. They do look that good. Like they made it look really, really good. So I would definitely recommend it. I'd give it like 3.5. Definitely worth giving your time to. So check it out.
I'd like to watch one of those, or a good Loch Ness, like that shows the Loch Ness really well. There's not many Loch Ness or cryptid movies like that with those type of Loch Nesses.
Well, what's great is there's no CGI. They did it all practical too.
Awesome.
So that's why it looks as legit as it does. What
was the name of this one again?
Incident at Loch Ness.
Very cool. Incident at Loch Ness, directed by Werner Herzog, which you had me at Werner Herzog directing
Yeah.
a Loch Ness found footage film. And what did you say this was streaming on, Chris?
Tubi.
Tubi.
Yeah. Just find it on
Fantastic.
Tubi,
So
like I find every goddamn
I'm gonna
thing.
check that one out.
yes, check out Incident at Loch Ness, Werner Herzog on Tubi. 3.5 stars from your host, Ruthless Chris. How about you, Killer Kelly? What you got next for us?
Oh, the next one. I took a nap and I woke up and Tubi was still playing and this one was just starting and it was stupid and I knew it was gonna be stupid. It delivered. This was ATM from 2012. So yeah, this is ATM on Tubi from 2012. It's this is the era where movies started getting really dumb. Chris has been digging them lately, the early 2010s and shit. And this is one of those movies that take place all in one spot, like this takes place in the ATM machine, you know? So you get 2012. So you get the yeah. All right. It starts out. Sorry, I got distracted by you guys talking about 2012.
We're not talking.
You're chatting. Anyway. A bunch of coworkers, they get together after a party. The one dude wants the girl, it's her last night there, but he's had eyes on her the whole time, and finally like finagles like, I'm gonna give this girl a ride home. So like he goes to take her home and his friend's like completely cock blocks him, like, no man, I'm supposed to ride with you. So on the way back, then he like his friend's a complete dick. Like, no, we need to get food. No, we need to drive 20 minutes that way because I'm staying here tonight. Like completely cock blocking his friend. And he's like, I need to use the ATM. So they all go to the ATM, and one dude's taking too long, so they get out. You know, they all end up in this little building, and this like dude is just standing out there. Like some guy in a big furry suit. It's like 5 below that night too, so it's super cold. And they're in like this little ATM station. But this guy's just out there, and they're like, what's this guy's problem? And they try paying him, and that doesn't work. And then somebody approaches, and he just smashes the guy's head open. So the whole movie is these idiots in this ATM thing making a bunch of dumb decisions, getting each other hurt, when they probably, I don't know, they could have got out of this scenario sooner than what it was. The end was a kind of a ridiculous twist ending. It's literally just this guy standing out this little ATM building that, I don't know, man. I don't think I'd recommend it. But it is exactly what I expected when I seen the name and the year. I'm like, oh, it's one of these. Fuck it, I'm going to leave it on. But yeah, I don't know. I'll give it a 2.5 though. I'll give it. It wasn't absolutely terrible. It made me laugh at a couple parts just because, not because it was funny, but it was funny. You know.
Well, I mean, sometimes unintentionally funny movies are still enjoyable. So ATM, where's this Tubi, Freebie, all of the above?
Tubi. Yep.
Tubi?
Yeah, probably.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because it started off with you fell asleep and you woke up and it was on.
Yeah.
Which I kind of love that story. I kind of love that story. What did you give it?
Tubi just plays until you stop it.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It could be a torture device one day. You just strap somebody in there, start something really bad, and then it just goes from bad to worse to worse to worse. And they're forced to watch these movies because Tubi will never stop until you stop it.
Right.
Give them my Tubi algorithm. If they had my Tubi algorithm, they would be so screwed. I have my thing programmed to be the most insane fucking curation of things ever with all the crap I watch.
Man, mine has gotten real weird with Bigfoot week and then Shark week. Like now it thinks that all I want to watch is like animal movies and like cryptids. Like literally my whole algorithm. It's fucking weird.
I mean, that could be a premise for a movie in itself of torturing somebody by forcing them to watch Tubi until like their head explodes or like they're brainwashed into being like some psychopath. Yeah, why don't we talk to Tubi and we pitch this idea to them?
Fuck that. Sponsor us, Tubi. We watch enough of your goddamn movies.
right?
What do we got to do to get Tubi to sponsor?
Show us that Tubi love.
But anyways,
To be or not
yeah,
to be
watch
too.
watch ATM on Tubi if you want to watch something silly and unintentionally funny. Sounds like a blast. I might
It's
have to
pretty
check
dumb
it
and
out.
ridiculous, and that's why it's funny. You know, just like really, the whole thing's. Oh, they did that. Okay, idiots.
Very cool. Very cool. You know what? It's funny though, because ever since that came out on DVD, I've always had a slight curiosity about it.
Yeah,
Just do it.
just
The
do
next
it.
one I'm going to talk about
Worth one
is
watch.
what's that?
It's worth one watch.
It's worth one watch. You know, make it one and done. That's what I always say, one and
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
The next one I'm going to talk about is actually a film that I once again always been curious about since I was a kid, like a little kid, just because the artwork on the VHS cover is so stupendous, and I'm glad that I finally got around to checking it out. It is 1987's Slaughterhouse Rock. Oh my goodness gracious gravy. What a wild movie. And then realizing that it stars, Oh Mickey, You're So Fine's Tony Basil, and the soundtrack is by Devo. It's kind of mind-blowing. Now, if you don't know anything about this movie, it's a man visits Alcatraz prison after having dreams about the people who died there. And when he gets there, his brother is possessed by an evil cannibal demon, and the ghost of a female heavy metal singer who was killed there tries to help the man fight the monster. This is a wild ride from beginning to end. A lot of crazy dream sequences, which reminded me a lot, of course, of A Nightmare on Elm Street. And it came out around the same time as the height of the Nightmare on Elm Street popularity. And I always pop real big for any sort of Nightmare on Elm Street knockoff. I love Bad Dreams, anything like that. Dreamscape. Things where if you die in your dream, you gotta die in real life. So when I started watching Slaughterhouse Rock, I got the collector's edition Blu-ray that Vinegar Syndrome came out with, and just everything about it, it was amazing and a lot of fun. I was a little let down that there's no killing until like the second or third act in this, until they actually get to Alcatraz, and even then it kind of had a Night of the Demons feel, because everybody who got killed came back to life and they're all hunting each other. But it's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it, like I hadn't seen it before now. It's streaming on Tubi, Plex, Freevee, AMC Plus, and if it's on AMC Plus, it's probably on Shudder as well. I gave it 3 stars. Have you guys seen Slaughterhouse Rock?
Yeah, it's been a long time, but yeah.
Do you remember anything about it?
I remember bits and pieces. I remember I enjoyed it. I love those. I love a lot of like The Rock. Didn't we do a? What? Didn't we do a?
Yeah, we did
an episode.
We did a metal themed episode, and that's when I watched it. So I had watched it recently. Yeah, I loved it. Slaughterhouse Rock was a great old time.
I remember watching it years ago with you, when me and you had a movie night that we picked out all rock movies. Yeah, like Black Roses, and yeah.
Yep.
So, Chris, how do you feel about Slaughterhouse Rock?
I loved it. Like I said, I watched it recently. I don't know how long ago that was. We did the heavy metal themed, but it was for that when I watched it. Most recently, like she said, we watched it way back in the day, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. There was really cool like dream sequences. The special effects were fun. Real goopy stuff. Yeah, it's good stuff. Plus I'm a sucker for a good heavy metal horror movie, especially those 80s style ones that they were just pumping out year after year for a while, like Rock and Roll Nightmare and fucking, like she said, Black Roses and all that, those super cheesy, let's put Jan Michael Thor in a loincloth and give him a broadsword kind of fucking heavy metal horror movies. So yeah, I give that thing 3.5. I love it. And it is on Shudder.
3.5 from Chris. Kelly, from what you remember, how many stars would you give Slaughterhouse Rock?
I don't remember a lot. I remember it being fun. I'm pretty sure we were probably drinking a little heavily that night back in the day. It would make sense. But I don't remember a lot. I don't know. I'm just gonna trust Chris's judgment on that. I probably liked it enough to give it a 3. 3,
Fair enough. And I give it a 3
3.5.
as well. Check it out. You've got no excuses because it's streaming pretty much everywhere and lots of free streaming services. So check out Slaughterhouse Rock if you get a chance to. Ruthless Chris, what do you got next for us, baby?
The last one I got, it kind of teeters on horror. There's a lot of horror in it, but it's probably my favorite I watched of the week. It's a newer movie from 2019 called Villains by Robert Olson and Dan Burke. I initially watched this because of the cast of it. It stars Bill Skarsgård, who I've been really enjoying lately. He's been doing a lot of cool stuff with Barbarian, John Wick 4. And then it had Jeffrey Donovan in it, who played on this really cheesy spy show called Burn Notice I used to watch. But he was also in this prison movie I watched recently too. That was really good. But it's about this younger couple. They are kind of going on a robbery spree to get money together to run away together to Florida. So they're putting on like Halloween masks and like running into gas stations and emptying registers. And while they're making their big getaway from their most recent robbery, Skarsgård character Mikey, he never put gas in the car, so they end up running out of gas like in the middle of nowhere, and they're like, well, fuck, what are we gonna do? And they find this house that's out in the middle of nowhere. They break in. There's a car in the garage that they're gonna try to steal and take off with. Well, while they're looking for the keys to this thing, and the homeowners are not home, they find a little girl chained up in the basement. And then it kind of really starts spiraling from there. And that's not me giving up a lot, because I think they show that in the preview. It happens pretty early on. But the couple itself, they end up coming home, and the acting on them, like they come off as like almost 50s, like very neighborly, sweet people. Like the man's got like a paper thin mustache, and he kind of has a, like, if you're keen on stealing my knife, well, go ahead, son. Like that kind of thing. And the wife, you could tell, is very off. She's always carrying around this baby, but you never really see the baby. And it kind of spirals out of control from there. They realize that they're not the most dangerous people there, that this older couple is. And it's finding out the backstory of that, survival, getting out of the house because it's in the middle of nowhere. The acting in this thing is really top notch. It's pretty fucking funny, even though it's gruesome at times. It has a sense of humor to it, a very dark sense of humor. I really like the tone of it, and I'm sorry, what was his name? Jeffrey Donovan as George, the elder husband in this, was fucking phenomenal in this thing. So I couldn't recommend it enough. I really, really enjoyed this movie. I give it 4.5. Like it has the same tone as like Come to Daddy. Like it's a very similar in tonality and style, and like where you don't really know what's going on most of the time, but like the conversations are so quirky and fun and like offbeat, and like kind of gives you a little cringe humor and things like that. It really draws you in and keeps you stuck there till the end.
Yeah, very, very cool. I remember watching this film, and I don't remember too much about it, but at the same time, I just quickly looked up my rating on the Letterboxd, and I gave it 4.5 as well. So I'm assuming I loved it. So if I loved it when I watched it, I would recommend it as well. Kelly, I'm guessing you haven't seen this one.
I don't see what was this called again?
Villains.
I have watched this. I've seen it on Hulu. Yeah, it's got the bright pink case. Yeah, I watched it a while ago before we ever had the podcast. And when you were explaining it, I was like, yeah, I liked this a lot as well. I really enjoyed this one. I think I remember highly recommending it when I watched it.
Yeah, 4.5 stars. It's on Hulu, you said?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you check it out ASAP. And in the meantime, Killer Kelly, what you got for us? Last one before we talk about the Big H.
The next one I watched is also on Hulu. This is a newer one, 2022, written and directed by Bess Wool. Apparently, it is like her debut movie. So yeah, baby Ruby. This follows Joe. She's a French social media influencer, and her husband, who's a butcher, live in this beautiful house and everything. And she gets pregnant. She has the baby, and she quickly feels there's something wrong. Like, it won't stop screaming. She's just like under the impression that this thing hates her. Like, it kind of goes into a scene that's a lot like Grace, where it like bites her boob and she's bleeding all over the place. It's there's not a lot I can say about this movie, because this is one of those ones that are better to go in blind, and I don't really want to ruin a lot. But it does seem like a big allegory for like postpartum depression and stuff like that. It kind of keeps you guessing, like, is there something wrong with the baby? Is it trying to eat her, or is there some cult shit going on? So it kind of gets you like questioning that sort of thing. It was decent. A little confusing at times. Like, is this a dream sequence? Is this? It had really cool visuals. There was some decent gore. It was definitely more of a psychological horror than anything else. A slow burn for sure. I don't know. There was a couple times where I felt like it was gonna like lose me, but then I like, it picked back up, and it was a decent movie. I'd give it a 3.
Sweet. Sounds like a fun one to watch. Have you seen this one, Chris?
I have not. I almost watched it the other day. This one's brand new, right?
Yeah, 2022. But
yeah, I think whatever streaming service it was on, I had hovered over it, read the description and stuff, and then moved on. But I think I added it to my queue.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
Definitely sounds like an interesting watch, and with 3
It wasn't-
stars,
Yeah, it was interesting for sure.
why not check it out? Check it out, Joe. But before we get into our celebration of all things Howard the Duck, I've got one last movie to talk about, and it's a double feature with Slaughterhouse Rock on the Vinegar Syndrome double feature pack, which I don't know if they've done in a long time, but they did it, and I'm thoroughly glad that they did, because out of the 2 films, this one I actually liked a little bit more. It is 1984's Hard Rock Zombies. Oh my goodness gracious. This was a crazy movie, and I loved it to a point. Especially Out of the Grave band of Hard Rock Zombies. They're thirsty to take their sweet revenge as they give the performance of their lifetime. That description does not aptly describe this crazy movie. Yeah, it's a horror, comedy, musical, everything, all of the above. And yeah, this hard rock band, and I guess that term is used loosely because it's more of like just a poofy haired pop band in the mid 80s, and they're gonna get their big break playing in a small town in like Northern California, and they're supposed to be discovered that night. But they stay at some crazy family's house, which is, I think they're supposed to be like the Addams family, but then surprise, everybody in the family is like serial killers or werewolves, and bigger surprise, they're all Nazis. And the town is like Footloose Town, and they don't want any rock and roll being played in the town, so they kill the band. I mean, that's the only logical next step. You don't want rock and roll in the band, you kill the band. But then the band comes back to life somehow, because the underage girl that the singer has a crush on cries and wishes they came back. So they come back, and then they start biting the Nazis, and then the Nazis come back, and yeah, it just keeps going and going and going. Once again, this movie would have been awesome at like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, right when like the zombies kill the Nazis. You could have you could have stopped the movie right there, and I've been like 5 stars all day. It kind of just keeps going and going. It's an hour and 38 minutes, and it feels longer than that, unfortunately. But I still gave it 3 stars because it's so much fun. And whenever Phil Fundarco, I think I'm murdering that, but if you know who that is, he's the little person who is also in Ghoulies 2. He's in Troll. He was in a lot of movies in the 80s, little horror, low budget horror movies, sci-fi fantasy films. So when I saw him in this, I popped definitely. And then it's just a real silly movie. To me, it felt like House of a Thousand Corpses was probably inspired by this, at least somewhat, just because of all the cinematography. There's a dancing zombie Nazi woman who's just started dancing in the street repeatedly. Some of the, I'm guessing because of the videography, the cinematography, it's very music video esque, and I know that's how Rob Zombie did House of a Thousand Corpses, kind of quick cuts and weird angles. So it reminded me of that movie too, which I'm a big fan of. So 3 stars. Have either of you guys seen Hard Rock Zombies?
I don't believe I have.
No, but I almost watched it on Shudder a couple times. It's on Shudder and Screenbox.
Yep, Shudder, Screenbox, and AMC Plus. So if you don't feel like buying a hard copy from Vinegar Syndrome, there's definitely possibilities to watch it. I think Screenbox and Shudder are the 2 leading horror streamers, and it's also there on AMC Plus. Hard Rock Zombies, a good time to be had by all those involved. It is wacky. And speaking of wacky, we've got a doozy for you. A lot of people, this is a very, and it shouldn't be at this point in our lives, very divisive film. It divides people right down the middle. You either love it, like myself, or you hate it, like communists do. We are going to be talking about Howard the Duck. It's 37 years old on August 1st, 2023. And boy, oh boy, do I love Howard the Duck.
And now for our feature presentation.
I remember my older brother renting this movie when I was a kid. And I walked in right when they were featuring the Dark Overlords of the World, or whatever they're called. And I was scared crapless. And so that's why I do find it to be horror adjacent. But this film flopped big time in 1986, and now it's grown to have a huge cult following. And if you bring it up, people either, like I said, they either love it or they hate it. And if you're not familiar with Howard the Duck, it is about a sarcastic humanoid duck. He's pulled from his home world, which is like Earth in a alternate dimension, and then a female rock singer and a nerdy scientist have wacky adventures trying to get him back to his world. I've already rambled on about how great this film is, the cast and everything. You guys, tell us a little bit on your thoughts on Howard the Duck and how we're going to celebrate the 37th anniversary of Howard the Duck. Quack, quack, quack.
I have not seen this movie since a wee, real little wee. Yeah, man, this is the first time I've seen it in a while. I didn't remember a lot of it. The banging the duck scene was a little strange. The rock star banging the duck.
Well there. the themes of bestiality are very strong.
Yes. But yeah, I don't know. I think it definitely picks up at the end. It's a good time at the end.
How about you, Chris? What are your feelings about Howard the Duck?
Howard the Duck is the tale of 2 movies to me. All right. Now, first off, I had not seen this since I was probably like 12, 13 years old.
Yeah, man, I was young.
Everything I remembered about this movie all was from the first act. I remembered Tim Robbins running around. I remembered the big hair and the bands. I remembered the really inappropriate sauna. Because, as a kid, I was like, I probably shouldn't be watching this, right? Like, for a PG movie, it gets real sexual a lot of the time. I did not remember anything about the Dark Overlords. The wonderful possession scene that goes down in a Cajun hibachi sushi place.
Yeah.
where he just goes ham on like anything that's kitchen equipment and not people. Like there's like a minute and a half of him just like blowing up soda fountains and fryers and shit.
In Cleveland, doesn't this take place in Cleveland too? Nonetheless,
It says Cleveland. I spent a lot of time in Cleveland, like all the time. And that ain't Cleveland, bro. That ain't fucking Cleveland. But this is one of those things where I don't necessarily enjoy the first half of it all that much. The second half of it, I fucking love to death. I think it has like a big, like, it teeters on, is this a kid's movie or not? Because it's wildly inappropriate at times, but it's also wildly too silly for adults at times. So I think that's actually probably why it had so much problems when it came out earlier. Because, you know, like, there's a lot of kids humor, but the next thing you know, there's a woman fucking a duck and they're in a rub and tug. And, like, literally, like, girls got their boobs out getting groped on. Like, it's like,
yeah, it's like it's almost like they were going for the Roger Rabbit sort of like, this could be for kids, but they took it a little too far, you know.
Roger Rabbit's a good way to describe this, because that seems like the tone they were going for. Whereas Roger Rabbit knew how to toe the line a little bit. I think this one like was like the duck from Darkman that's lit the lighter where it used to be teetering back and forth. Like the end of this thing goes full Roger Corman. Like with the what are they, Galaxy Lords or Dark Lords of the Galaxy or whatever? Those were some cool creature designs. Howard the Duck and his little weird fucking laser tank, give me that all day. End with him shredding a guitar like he's Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future. All the fucking about it. It's just for some reason, just the first half of this has trouble like drawing me in. But by the end of it, I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, Howard the Duck. So like I said, it's a tale of two movies to me, you know?
Well, it's interesting. You know, at the time, of course, I had no idea that Howard the Duck was based on a Marvel property. You know, when it came out, they didn't mention anything about being based on a comic book. And then the Evil Overlord, you know, specifically is based on his full title is Thog the Nether Spawn Overmaster of Somnus. I mean, obviously, you can't have that in a movie that is rated PG, is marketed more of like a kid's movie, and like you said already, it is more of it's more of an adult themed movie, which would play excellent on a double feature with Roger Rabbit. The best way I was thinking about this when I was watching it, it's kind of like Blues Brothers meets E.T. You know, you get I could see that. An outer space.
Blues Brothers meets E.T. with like Freaked thrown in there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, you know, the chases are wild. The chase scenes are wild. The soundtrack is great. I love the soundtrack personally. And of course, any movie with like Hollywood punks or punk rock in it, I pop for immediately. And I remember I watched this a couple years ago, a 70 millimeter print of it at Music Box Theater. I think that was the first time I noticed that Leah Thompson's character Beverly has a Circle Jerk sticker on her guitar case, and I was just like, "Oh my god, punk rock!" You know. But yeah, it's such a fun movie, and it's funny that George Lucas lost his ass on this movie so bad that he started selling off properties, and at that time he had newly launched a CGI animation division, and that had turned into Pixar. Just to save his ass, he lost Pixar. So it is wild, like how this has come full circle, that people still love this movie. That people, I mentioned it, you know, last night when I was watching it, and people just like hitting me up. Oh my god, that movie's so great! It's so much fun. Blah blah blah. I have the Blu-ray. But you look up who played Howard the Duck, and there's like at least 2 or 3 different actors, somebody doing the voice. There was like a million different people working the eyes and the robots. If I read correctly, just Howard the Duck, like the suit, cost $2 million at that time. Yeah, yeah,
That piece of shit.
right. So like
What was this plastic and painted?
like
It's
I'm
not
sure
that terrible.
everybody I'm sure everybody saw the after credit scene in it's either Guardians of the Galaxy 1, I think it's part 1, where Howard the Duck makes a cameo, and I'm sure that cost considerably less than the fully animatronic suit and eyes of the $2 million 1986 Howard the Duck. Although I
That's
did get
insane.
really excited seeing that cameo and hoping for a new Howard the Duck movie because that would be incredible. There's so many great references in the movie too. Everything from a big one that repeats a couple times is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like there's multiple references to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like there's a poster on the wall where it's like a duck version of it, and
Oh
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
I just love like they kind of poke fun of George Lucas's films. Uh, Even like the opening when they're talking about, and then there was Howard the Duck is kind of like the intro
Yeah.
to the original Star Wars. So I am a big fan of poking fun of Star Wars. So that I love everything about how campy and how much fun Howard the Duck is, and how much the Dark Overlords really did scare me. And it's interesting to see all the different people that did audition for the roles of Beverly. Everybody from Linnea Quigley to Tori Amos. It's crazy to think, how different this movie would be if you had a Linnea Quigley playing Beverly. You know what I mean? And now she was glad that she didn't get the role. It's like, come on, yeah, I love Return of the Living Dead, and I love everything Linnea Quigley's been in. But I mean, if she was in Howard the Duck, that might have been actually a good stepping stone for her. What do you guys think about the cast of this movie? Tim Robbins killed it. Everybody was pretty amazing. Could you
Yeah,
guys talk about the cast a little bit?
Leah Thompson killed it. Like I think her in this movie. You don't think so? Shaking your head. I think she did great.
I think she was a giant ham in this thing, and I don't mean that like terribly, but I wouldn't call her performance killing it. I would call it very over the top and loud. And my favorite thing was just how big is her hair going to be in the next scene, because
I
it
think
does
that's what I liked about
progressively
it.
get fucking bigger. And to the end, it's just like this giant, like fucking bobby cut that's like a foot out from each side of her head.
I mean, the whole movie's kind of over the top, so like it fit. Like her, she. I don't know. I think she. I think it was good.
I do. It's one of my favorite things about Tim Robbins that not a lot of people remember is that he started out like doing like Second City and Saturday Night Live and stuff. He was a comedic guy. He did stand up and all that. So I always like seeing him when he pops up in comedic roles. So I really enjoyed him in this. Like when he popped up in the Tenacious D movie and he was like the guy, like he was crippled, but he's like, come here so I can stab you. And they're like, we're not coming over there, dude. Like I really enjoy him in comedic roles.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's kind of good for him because he got to like really like lean into like the nerd vibe he puts off and all that. Like you would hard believe that's the same guy that was in Jacob's Ladder. So it's cool to see him in those roles. I did enjoy Tim Robbins. I gotta look up his name. The guy that played he's a famous character actor. He's the guy that gets possessed by the Dark Lords and like slowly turns into him. He's in a lot of movies.
Jeffrey Jones.
Yes.
Yeah, he's in Beetlejuice. He had some like bad scandals in the early '90s, which is why you don't really like see much more of him.
Really, I didn't know that. Because I was about to say too, Jeffrey Jones did this the same year as he did Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which I think is amazing.
Like child porn or something with like paying a younger somebody to.
You should look that up before you speculate on it.
I read it earlier today, actually.
Okay, just like like that's not something you should like be spitballing. Like
I was
you should be like, well, if it's down that lane, you better.
But no, like look him up. There's some scandal behind him, like surrounding. I might not have all the details correct, but it has something to do with photography and somebody underage.
Well, like
Fair
I was
enough.
saying, I normally enjoy him as a character actor. I did remember him
Mhm.
from stuff like Beetlejuice. I
Yeah.
really loved him in Ravenous, which is one of my favorite underappreciated horror movies.
Oh yeah.
So it was fun to see him. Like I forgot he was in this, and then that he got to go so over the top and be like this possessed guy whose face just keeps getting more and more disfigured, and he gets wetter and wetter by the scene, but until the end where he's just dripping slime before he turns into this giant,
Yeah.
the Thing
Yeah.
style monster. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Mhm.
It was
Scandal
funny-
aside, I'm just talking.
No, yeah.
I didn't know anything about this scandal when I watched the movie. I was just like, this guy from fucking Beetlejuice.
I didn't read. I didn't like read too many details, but as I was watching this movie, I was like, I heard. Isn't that the dad from Beetlejuice? I remember reading something, and then I just kind of looked, and I was like, oh, yep, it is him. You know. So yeah.
It's funny though that you mentioned how big Leah Thompson's hair was, because I read earlier as well that the hair and makeup people spent 2 hours before shooting on her
Okay.
hair. That is crazy. That is a lot of time to spend on one person's hair for a movie, but I appreciate that. She says that looking back on the film, she would have much preferred to have just worn a wig than to spend 2 hours on that. And it's also funny that Jeffrey Jones playing this character, because a lot of the special effects that they used reminded me of the Disney movie Mr. Boogedy. I don't know if you guys remember Mr. Boogedy at all.
I do vaguely remember Mr. Boogedy. It was on like Saturdays, wasn't it?
It was a Disney movie that came on Sunday night. Yeah, it's like one of their
Vaguely.
Sunday night specials, but it scared the crap out of me. So seeing a similar effect being used on Dr. Walter Jennings was terrifying to me as a kid, and definitely stuck with me, and I fully appreciated that though, because people like to go on and on about how bad this movie is, but I really can't put it into that category, because it does have that fun road movie of Blues Brothers. It does have some really great quirky comedy. It does have a sci-fi fantasy, but like you could see James Gunn redoing this and making it a superb adult comic book movie, like he did with Guardians of the Galaxy or Suicide Squad or any of those films, where James Gunn just takes an odd property and turns it into a major franchise. And I also love it works so well. They said that the comic that it was based on was actually more adult oriented. Like it was
You can tell.
yeah. What's the guy that looks like Spider-Man, but he's really using a lot of profanity? He's got black and red.
Venom?
No.
Carnage?
No.
Deadpool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peapod. Yes, they said that it was supposed to be similar to Deadpool, the humor in the original book, and that they had to tone it down a lot for the PG rating. So even though you see some duck titties and a grimy massage parlor and some wild special effects, I also love the barbecue Italian sushi place. That makes me laugh. Everything about this movie I just love from beginning to end. I give it 5 stars all day long without any sort of remorse. You can watch it on Amazon Prime if you've got Amazon Prime. If not, you can buy the movie, a hard copy, really cheap. You guys, what kind of star rating would you give the 37th anniversary of Howard the Duck?
I did want to chime in. I did notice that Prime is taking it off in 3 days. So by the time this comes out, it will not be up there. I think they just gave it like a 2-week run for just this. So I just wanted to point that out. But I enjoyed it a lot. Like I said, the first half, not so much as the second. So I can't give it the glowing 5 stars that Jerem is. And I could see him just laser beaming me with his eyes right now, wanting to murder me. But I give it 3. I
was also going to say 3. I'm sorry, Jerem. I I don't have the roots in it that you had, but it is an enjoyable movie and it is a classic and it's definitely a product of its times. You know, if it might have been something I was more familiar with and watched more over the years, I might be as like in love with it as you are. Talk to me about the Burbs because that's how I am with that.
I could see watching the Burbs and this.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, no, I love the Burbs as well. But I am a huge Howard the Duck mark, absolutely. So, but yeah, totally understandable. 3 stars isn't bad. You know, I gave Slaughterhouse Rock and Hard Rock Zombies 3 stars, so I'm not mad at you about that at all. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm sad to see that it won't be streaming on Amazon Prime in a couple days. But
yeah, after I got done watching it, it said leaving Prime in 3 days, like up by the corner. I was like, what the fuck? I know they just put it up.
fair enough. Well, you can get I'm sure you can get a physical copy for pretty cheap. And if you really want to watch Howard the Duck on streaming, you could definitely rent it on Amazon as well. But that's about it for this episode. And we're going to wrap it up. And who knows what we're going to be watching, what we're going to be talking about next week. We may have a guest. We may be talking about a movie. What do you guys think?
We'll let you know. It'll be a surprise.
It's going to be an in-depth, insightful, deep dive look at the world of slap fighting and what its effects on the modern landscape in today's world.
Yeah, we're just changing the podcast.
Changing formats. Changing it up.
Changing formats.
Slap fights from here on out.
Slap fights. Nothing but slap fights and Monster Energy drink.
Slapping your grandpa's fat dong.
Oh my God.
Slapping that down.
Anyways, any last words for the people out there in Real Vile Land?
Have a good night.
Keep it sleazy.
Have a good night and keep it sleazy. And of course, from your old pal, Mr. Germ T. Ripper, I'm going to say, keep it creepy, keep it spooky, keep it real vile forever. God bless America and send news.